Okay, so we have been learning about arithmetic operations so far and the different kind of types of variables used in your programs. Today we're going to shift from mostly we've done like doubles and ints, which are numbers, and we're going to talk about strings. All right, so we're going to learn about the string class and how it's used in our programs. And so at the end of this, we'll have both doubles, ints, and then strings. Remember, string, we talked about it briefly before. It's just like text. So any words, a name, a character name, a name of a level, anything like that would be a string variable. So your job is to see if you can figure out of if these were different variables, things we wanted to track in our program, pieces of data, which type would they be? String, double, or int? All right, pause the video and see if you can label each one as one of these types. All right, so character name is just going to be a string of text, like Dragon Slayer 47, so that'd just be a string. Number of kills is probably going to be an int because you can't get fractional kills, probably. Item name, also a string. Mighty Sword of Doom would be a string. Damage per hit, that potentially could be a double if it was a decimal, or if it's always going to be integers, we can make it an int. So that one's kind of a little bit unsure, but I'm going to say double just to make safe, make sure, even if it did come out to be whole numbers all the time, it still wouldn't be bad to have it as a double. Team name would be a string. All right, so that would just be, the cheetahs or whatever they are. That would be just a string of data. Okay, so today's lesson is going to be how these strings work. Okay, so to take some notes about strings, I think I'm just going to have us do it in a .java file so that you'll have some example string code. And so I'm going to have you get that code. And so here are the directions for it. All right, but I'll also walk you through it here in this video. All right, so basically we've got to get it from our Schoology shared folder. So I'm going to go up to the top and click on this. And then once it loads, I'm going to go to chapter 2, starter codes, and then string notes, and I'm just going to download that. So however you download it, sorry, you can't quite see it down here, but it's downloading on the bottom of Chrome here. And then in my package explorer, I just go to downloads, at least if you're using Chrome. So you have to know wherever you download it, and then get that file and copy it. And then I'm going to go into Eclipse, and you probably put it in your programs package. Sorry, I just have the default here, but I'm just going to paste it in and see. Oh, it does show up, right? If it doesn't show up, hit refresh, but it should show up in there. Then double click it to open it. All right, and then here's where we're going to take some notes about strings. All right, so definitely pause the video, make sure you get this loaded. You could try and run it. I don't think it'll do anything here at the start, but oh, actually it has some code at the end. Oh, okay. So at any rate, you can make sure that it runs and before continuing with these notes. Okay, so strings are quite a bit different than the variables we've done before because they're what is called like a reference type. Right, so I don't know how far I want to dig into this in this lesson because I think it gets kind of complex. But inside of Java, there is roughly 2 different categories of variables. The double and the int are what is called primitive, and they're just like basic data, like really, really simple things. But as our stuff gets more complex, so a string is actually a bunch of characters that's a little more complex, it's going to be what's called like an object or reference type. Okay, and because it's a different category of variable, the way you create it, the way you use it is quite a bit different than how you do it with a primitive. Okay, so just a couple things you might want to jot down in your notes. Primitives, they'll always have like a lowercase first letter. That's how you'll know, and they'll show up as purple in Java when you type them. That's how you know that the type is primitive. All right, and then you already know how to create them. So some differences in the object world is they're going to use an uppercase letter. So they'll start with an uppercase letter. That's the way you'll be able to tell that it's an object type. And they're for more complex data. And then these are huge pieces. So one of the ways, so we're going to start to create them here. One of the ways to create them is to use this new keyword. And in fact, every single object type, you'll have to use this new keyword when you create it. String is actually the only exception to that. You still can use the new keyword, but you don't have to. And string is a weird one that, you know, actually has a few properties of a primitive, but for the most part, it's treated as a reference. Okay, and then a huge piece for accessing it is you're generally going to use these dot operators, which is really goofy, and you'll see that as we fill this out, but you'll just do like the name of the variable dot, all right, versus over here, if I wanted to update x, I could just say x, you know, x is whatever x is plus 3 more. Okay, and so to access it here, you're going to do the name of our variable, which in this case was name right here, and then dot, and you might do something like substring from 1 to 5, and that'll just take a substring from this existing string, right? So to access them, you use this dot operator. Okay, so much of this we're going to fill out in our notes here is going to be different because it is this object type, right? And it's kind of goofy, but we'll start to do more objects, and they'll have like these different properties, and the way you use them is different. All right, so as far as creating the string, there's two ways. So we can do string, and let's just do first name. Let's keep going with Mr. Atkins. String last name. All right, equals new string. Okay, so I'm going to do one for int here, just as an example. Int age equals 7. We'll do Nick's age at about 7 here, or something like that. All right, so when you do a string variable, the type is string. Before it was int. And then we do the name just like we did before. And then we're going to assign it an initial value, in this case, Nick. Much like with this variable here, you can overwrite it and change it, right? But for now, we're going to start it off as Nick. Okay, so one way I put in here, there's two different ways. Oh, sorry, I should have put in there, but there's two different ways to make a string. And one is just like this. You just got to put the text in double quotes, right? If you don't have that, it's going to error out. Right, so make sure you put it in double quotes. Okay, and then the other way you can create one, which is pretty rare. I actually use this first one pretty much all the time, but I put this in here just to show you, as you start to build objects, you're going to have to use the new keyword and then the type again, and then in this case, we're just putting in what we want the initial value to be right here. All right, so strings again are a weird exception where you don't have to do this new keyword, but I want to put it in here just to say that as you get into more reference types, this is what it's going to look like. New, and then the type again, and then you pass in sort of the initial setup for that variable. Okay, and because strings are kind of a special one, you can do it this way. All right, so it's not all that different than the age variable there. Okay, so to combine them into a full variable, you just do like first name plus last name, and that'll just concatenate them. Okay, so the tricky part is you have to store this. So this would sort of join the two, but it wouldn't be stored anywhere. All right, and so if we want to use it, we need to like make a new string variable, maybe called full name, and set it equal to those two added together. All right, and now that'll do this, combine them, and then store it in full name. Okay, and so we can do, if we sys out print of that. If I haven't talked about it too, the shortcut, if you want to type this out all the time, is just type sys out and control spacebar. That's what I'm doing to save time. Okay, at any rate, this should print out Nick Adkins with a kind of a mistake, right? Then you can kind of think maybe what that mistake might be. Okay, so the problem is they're joined together like that. So if I want to have a space in there, you can just add the space right here. So I can do plus a space, double quotes with a space between them, and then plus last name, and that will give a space and give Nick Adkins his proper display there of his name. Okay, so from here, we can take any of our string variables, and all the things you can do with the string, you just type the name of the variable and then dot. So you can see that there's a bunch of different methods. You can get the length of the string. You can say, geez, what else? Let me see if I can find a common one. So index of, so it's like the index of a certain substring. You can get hash code, that one making sense. You can tell if it's equal to another string, right? So you can see all the different things you can do here, right? So we want to find the index of a specific letter, and it might not seem like why this would be useful, but it'll make sense hopefully as we go on here. So let's say I wanted to find in first name the index of the first like vowel, which I guess I know is I, but I can do name.index of, and then do a little substring here like I. All right, so this is just another string, but put it in double quotes, or as always, I guess. And so I'm looking for the first index of I, okay? And what this index of actually returns is a number representing the position of that letter in the string. Okay, so I'm going to store this. I'm going to do int idx for index equals first name dot index of I. All right, so it's just it represents the position of the first I in the first name variable. Okay, so then I'm going to print this out, and you might be thinking here that this would actually be 2 because I is sort of the second letter, but we'll see here if I run this, it actually returns 1. All right, and the reason for this is in Java, in strings, or actually in arrays, which we'll learn later, everything starts at 0. So when we count in math class, we start 1, 2, 3, 4, but in Java, we count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. Okay, so just to show you this visual, is if I have a string, say Taylor for Taylor Swift, the genius musician, the letters T-A-Y-L-O-R, T would represent the first spot, sorry, the 0 spot, A would be 1, etc., etc. Okay, so that if we were to call index of on this string for L, it would return 3. Okay, so for us, we have, again, Nick, right? And so we have the positions would be the N is the 0, the I is the 1, the C is 2, and the K is 3. All right. So oftentimes I'll kind of like assign them like this when I'm trying to figure out what will happen. I will do it that way. Okay, so that's the index of. All right, and if it doesn't find anything, index of returns -1. So if it's the substring isn't present, so I'm actually going to reuse my IDX variable. So I'm just going to type IDX again, and I'm going to reassign it to be first name dot index of, and I want to search for the string cool. So now I'm going to look in the string of Nick for cool, and since it's not there, it's going to return -1. Okay, so if we do this and run it, it'll return -1. Okay, and so please know that index of, you can pass in like a single letter here, or you can pass in like an actual substring. So if I did k or whatever, that would be the CK. So that would find where does CK start in the first name string, and that would be again 0, 1, 2. So it would start at 2. So now that it's like this, it should return a 2. Okay, so that's our first little way to access a string using these dot methods. The first one is index of. Okay, and I'll go through the rest of this in a second video. So hopefully you have this file here and filling it out, and then you can reference it when you look back. You know what do I need to do with strings, or how do I use strings? You can use this, and you'll have it completed. Okay, thanks for watching.